Hello, and thank you for watching the Insider Threat Nightmare short subject. If you've seen any of my other videos, you know that I always talk about the equation of threat, vulnerability, and risk, where threat is the number of bad actors and the type of bad actor, vulnerabilities are the number of open doors you leave for them, and risk is the business damage that can cause. And if you increase or have a high number of open doors, you inherently increase the amount of potential brand damage. And you have to focus on the vulnerabilities because you never know who the bad actors are or what they're going to be after, and they're always going to be there. You can never eliminate them all. So in the concept of insider, this becomes very, very dangerous because the bad actor is somebody that you've trusted with your network environment and your network credentials, and you've given them an endpoint and a badge. And simply, they can just log in, take what they want, and retrieve it for financial gain. Now, how you find these people is really through a study of behavior. So let's look at what you can find out about these individuals. You can look at their public presence on social media and LinkedIn and other applications that may be even sponsored by your company. You can look at their employee records. You can look at their standard access patterns and what they typically do, and you can look at what they have access to and how they might use it throughout the day. You can take all this data together and feed it into a security analytics platform, and that can give you indicators of threat that an individual might be of concern and needs to be watched more closely. And what can happen is as soon as that individual starts to do things that you would consider to be abnormal for their daily work pattern, you can notify your information systems to prevent them from being able to retrieve data. And even if it's a mistake, what's the worst case scenario? The worst case scenario is the individual calls up IT and says, I was locked out, can I please have my information reinstated? And you go ahead and do so. Best case scenario, you have headed off a significant potential brand damage scenario. So, let's look at another aspect, because most times when you think about insider, you think about it only from a behavioral analysis or an analytics perspective. But there's another way to look for insiders other than having to dig into somebody's personal activities or work activities. In a traditional scenario, you have a device or a set of devices connected to a network which accesses information. And all three of these areas are reporting into an analytics system of some sort, and they are constantly pumping data into that platform. Now, when a bad actor is going to get into your environment, whether they're an insider or trying to behave like an insider, they're going to try and infiltrate an endpoint because that's the easiest place to get to. It's the highest number of them, they are the least well protected, and they have the highest amount of touch points to the public internet. Once that endpoint is infected, the first thing that any malware is going to try and do is prevent that endpoint from telling the analytics platform that it's been infected, and in fact continue to pump data into it like nothing is wrong. But the reality of it is that endpoint is now compromised. Now, the analytics platform doesn't know that. It thinks that everything is okay, and in fact, now the bad actor, whether they're an insider or posing as an insider, now has access to that endpoint, the information on it, and potentially the network as well, and the information sources. So let's look at that model. Bad actor, endpoint, information, and then retrieves it. Now, the common denominator in all of this is the network. The network sees all of it. So whether the endpoint is being told, don't report that you're infected, the access patterns according to behavioral analytics is perfectly normal. The network can see traffic coming from the internet going to an endpoint, traffic going from that endpoint to the information stores, and then from the information stores back to the internet. And if you have that network data, centrally fed into an analytics platform, you can correlate the fact that there is an endpoint that momentarily stopped responding and the network seeing traffic from the outside world happening at the same time with the same source and destination IP addresses or focused around the same user. And now you've got a predictor of insider threat that you would not have had if you weren't looking at the network in real time and you weren't feeding the network analytics in real time to the same platform that's ingesting the security analytics. So the bottom line is the awareness of malware, looking at the endpoint plus the network and the information stores and a security analytics platform equals a relatively secure method of protecting yourself against insider threat. Without that network component, you miss critical correlation pieces, and if you already know that there is the potential that you can't trust the log analytics from the endpoint and the information stores, you already know you're vulnerable. So you have to get that network piece into the equation for your security assessment, because the bottom line is the entire objective here is to minimize vulnerabilities so you can minimize risk. If you don't take every step possible, you are absolutely missing something. Thank you.